And we are back to talk about those very things that are important that I mentioned as far as a vision board. So I'm going to cheat a little bit tonight. I have some notes on the side because I'm literally using an actual calendar or paper format of a sort of like digital board, if you will. So let me just grab it here. So I repurposed this planner from about either a year or 2 years ago. It was blank, it had no life to it. And then I went and I just, jam packed it and wrote up a couple of things. These things that I wrote up, they're not my vision. They're actually the vision of a student as we were going through some of her goals for 2026. We said, let's get in front of them and let's write them down. Let's see exactly where you want to be in 2026. Why is this important to do at the beginning of the year? Well, it's obvious. Before you look up, time has gotten away from us all. Hasn't that happened? You say, by this time, I want to have this achieved. And before you know it, someone else has swooped in with their goals or their targets. And sometimes you can lose yourself trying to help other people. It certainly happened to me. So how do I keep myself legitimately focused while I'm helping somebody else? Well, I do it with what's called a vision board. Now, I do different mechanisms or use different mechanisms. I use a paper format at times. I'll even add to my paper format using calendars. Some people will laugh at me. I had a girl I work with. She was like, why do you have 5 calendars? Because that's how I am. I had a calendar for this, a calendar for that. That was me. When I'm focused, I make sure I don't commingle anything else so that I can laser to my target. Well, I've gotten to the point where I don't have as many calendars anymore, but I do use the digital format and a paper format. And this is important. Now, how do you do that? Well, we simply write down the goals that we want to achieve for the year. And here's the thing, a digital board or a vision board is great to write goals down because, as we said it, without a plan, you're not going to succeed. You're actually going to fail because you don't have it in front of you. And we often pay attention to what's right in front of us. So that is a key, right? You have to get that goal in front of you if you want to move forward with your goal. The thing is that having the paper goal gets you to write it down quickly. Sometimes you don't have a chance to to capture a digital note. So I like to have a paper or something. Sometimes I'll even just have regular loose leaf paper. I'll write it down and then I make sure I get it onto my actual paper vision board or digital board. What's the benefit of each? Well, the digital one you can carry with you no matter where you go. If it's on your phone, I like to use Apple Note. And that is something that keeps me true to my vision because I can simply click on it and see, okay, where am I in relation to that target? If I'm traveling, let's say I'm in the car, I'm catching a ride, or let's say I'm taking public transportation, give me a chance to literally connect with that goal and take notes and think about how I'm going to get or achieve what I need. With the paper one, some people, feel like, oh, I got to carry this big old thing around, or I got to carry a little mini planner around. I've had friends, help me with planners and so forth, and I'm grateful for that. And I am a person who has always believed in a paper calendar or some type of paper trail to what I would like to outline as far as moving forward with a goal. So for me, it's just the norm to just be able to write and jot things down. But for some people, they like the paper because they feel like the paper holds them accountable. Let me give you an example of what I mean. You could literally have your notebook planner opened and leave it flat on a table that you're going to walk by every day and stare down and see it. Whereas the digital, you have to literally go into the note and populate it or open it and then look. Whereas the open one is constantly in front of you. Now you see why I use both, because I want to be able to see where I am. So for example, I reached out to someone tonight and said, hey, where are we with this? Why? Because that goal was in front of me. So when I tell you that it's really good to have these tools, remember we talked about tools on one of my shorts. These are some of the tools, besides the Instagram and the digital format that people can use for getting out there and performing. But you also need some other tools to equip you to stay on target to get to those goals. So let's talk about the vision that you need is a plan. Do not write in a paper format or capture digital notes but not know where you're going. You also need a map to get you from point A to point B. So I find a lot of times with vision boards with people, that's where they get stuck. They have a big to-do list. It's as long as my arm, and they never get to achieve, half of what they have on there because they just put too much. Tell yourself small, sizable bites. When you eat food, you don't gulp it down. You take a little bit, chew on it, swallow it, digest it. It's the same thing with your format, with your digital platform and your paper format of goal setting and your vision. You definitely want to take bite-sized pieces and say, how can I get forward or move forward and take small steps? Remember, I used to say, or I used something in the other video for episode 1, I believe I said slow and steady wins the race, or I've always been taught that. A slow and steady person will get to their goal, but a person who just tries to be so fast, they run out of steam. That's what happens when we have too much on our boards. We run out of steam. So tell yourself, what are the goals, the most important? Make your list. It could be long as your arm. Then go back and look at it though and say, out of all these, which is the one that I really want to satisfy this year? And then move. That way you can see I'm actually working towards something. But if you don't have a line of sight, laser focused, you're just not going to make it. I can promise you. So we were talking tonight, a student and I, and we literally looked at her annual goal, vision board, whatever her method was. But as I'm on the other side as her teacher, I am capturing notes as to some of the things she wanted to do this year. Listen to this. She wants to take a song, develop it well, present it, and have me fall in love with it. Or maybe some peers fall in love with it. Meaning it's a song she can sing and we don't have too much critique. It's something that she feels like she can nail. Now, she's not saying she doesn't want the critique. What she's saying is she wants to get to that point where she's at that level where she performs that song and she nails it. I want you to think of Cheryl Porter. She's teaching people to sing on YouTube. A lot of times she will give them those notes and so forth, and some of them don't nail them in the beginning. But then you have some of her students that will nail it all the way through, and she's celebrating them. That's what she's saying. She wants to be able to nail it all the way through, if that makes sense. Then she says she wants to stay in a song emotionally, staying in the technique as she's singing the song. Look, listen to her goals. Like, this girl is focused. She knows what she's talking about. Then she says she doesn't want to have to think so much through a song. You know what that means? A person who's, as they're singing, they're thinking, should I breathe here? Oh, that note's coming up. That one's going to be, okay, let me get ready. No, when you're singing, you just want to glide. That's what she's saying. She wants to be able to stay connected in her technique and know exactly what she needs to do. Those are her goals. Another one, not think so much through the song. Has that ever happened to you? You worried about the lyrics. The next verse coming up was a challenge for you to memorize, and now you're stuck because here it comes. See, that's too much work. Or, and it's challenging as we get older to remember lyrics, so there's a lot that's forgiven as we get older, prompters and so on and so forth. If you choose to do that, some people want to sing new songs. I'm that person. Like, I want to sing a new song right away, and I'll use a prompter because I don't want to have to focus on the lyrics while I'm trying to deliver in the moment and just be able to touch people. I'll sometimes use a prompter for that reason because I love to learn so quickly a song and perform it. I know I'm a little crazy like that, but that's just the way I've been singing for so long that's just the way my brain works. I'm a contemporary artist, so contemporary, is more worldly in terms of they want to do the now, what's happening now. They want to give a nod to the old, but they also want to keep up with what's going on right now. So, I'm a little bit quicker when it comes sometimes to learning a new song that just came out. I'm going to learn it fast, and I'm going to make sure I nail the target. But that's just me. I'm not saying that has to be somebody's journey. That has been my journey. She wants to be able to change her register flawlessly and smooth. She should be, smooth with it. without the use of vocal sliding. So what she's saying is she wants to be able to jump to the notes versus using a scale method where you slide up to the notes. I mean, this she's very intentional. That's the word. She's very intentional what she wants to do. She wants to continue to develop her ear training. As a beginner, maybe that's something you want to do. Maybe you want to develop your ear training because it's small steps that get you to where you need to be. Well, how do you develop ear training? Well, instruments. Instruments are not going to steer you wrong with the way they sound and the way you should sound in imitation of them. So if you have a guitar, keyboard, I remember I used to have a little Casio and I used it to just strike a note and do I land that note exactly as it should sound from the instrument, because the instrument is more accurate. I'm not talking about a piano that needs to be tuned. Okay, you got instruments that need to be tweaked and tuned up. I'm talking about instruments that are already tuned, ready to go, and that is what you're leveraging. Let's say you don't have an instrument at your disposal. Well, there's plenty of apps out there that you can put an actual instrument on your phone and just strike it from your phone. Listen, we're in a world full of tools. So leverage some of these tools. Another one that a lot of people don't think about is a recorder. A recorder is the best thing you could possibly have. Why? You can sing and then let it play back to you, and that's what you sound like. Newsflash, you don't sound like Mariah. You know, I'm sorry for a lot of people who thought they did when they were singing and then they hit a recorder and they realized they didn't nail the notes. It's okay. I've been there, I promise you. But you have a tool that you could leverage, that you want to keep in mind. You have tools that are out there. So this is just some things a beginner would want to capitalize on. Performance level. How do you get to performance level? How do you make sure you are ready for a showcase? What should you be thinking of if you did develop a showcase? I'm just saying, these are goals. These are some serious goals here. This is somebody who's being intentional. And then the other things come with that. Because once you can get to the point where you're performing at a certain level, then we talk about monetizing, right? Then we move into a whole other category. Now, this individual, I will tell you, she had a beginning. When she first came out the gate, she could carry a tune, but she wasn't quite there. You know, I would see her sometimes and say, oh man, if I could get her under my belt, I could help her develop. And there's been several singers that I've been able to help in that vein, listen to them and say, oh, I know what it is, or I know what you're doing too much of this or that, or how do we fix that? You know, what are you doing with your jaw? How are you shaping your notes, your mouth? What's your diction when you sing? Are you mirroring the artist and how they sang it? And what is the nuance of that artist and why do they do it so well? Like we literally go in sometimes and dissect an artist. Like you'll see online on YouTube, we have a lot of people that are professionally trained in linguistic. They just really study and they can phrase something exactly like the artist. They could tell you what the artist did, their choice in direction of their notes and approach, and they can just break it down. Some people are just gifted like that, or they, you know, study the art of being able to break down a singer. You know, it's plenty of them online. Just YouTube, go to YouTube and just key in breaking down the artist's rendition of such and such, whatever. Anyway, long story short, that I like to say is you have to be an individual that studies. So why do some people, that studies, why do some students do better than others, right? Why is it they get to their goals a lot quicker? They write their goals down and they hold their teacher accountable. So let me say this, I'm going to put this down right now. You should be holding your teacher, whoever that person is, accountable for your learning. In other words, if you've been with a teacher for about, I would say, at least a year. I'm gonna throw myself on that. If you've been with a teacher for a year and you do not see any improvement, you are not able to do certain things, you're not meeting some of the goals that you've outlined, because anytime you go into any arena where you're learning, the teacher should be asking you, what is it that you want to achieve? And if you don't see that you're achieving those things, someone is taking you for a ride. They might be milking you for all it's worth. And then again, what are they charging you? What is their history? What can people say about them? What can people tell you about that individual throughout the years, the way they, developed them and where they started versus where they are? If you don't feel that you are moving that needle at all, it's time for you to find another teacher, because that means that teacher is wasting your time. That teacher is probably collecting some money from you, and they're in it for that reason. I'm going to be honest with you, and from my point of view, and people can check me on this and say I'm dead wrong or whatever. There are a lot of teachers that are in it for the money, because they got to collect money to pay bills and what have you, right? They need whatever they need. You're not going to get that from me as a teacher, because my passion is to see that student fly. My passion is not in the money. Don't get me wrong, the money is good, and that should be a byproduct, because isn't that the saying that if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life, or something like that? I truly did not understand that until I started embarking on music, performing, singing, and just in overall entertaining. And we're going to talk about an episode of what is the difference between those, because there's so much involved there. But anyway, I have to keep that in mind for another episode. But back to the focus of why some do better than others is because they have the right teacher that meets them and helps them build on what they already have. The student also, it's not all on the teacher now, it's also on the student, because the student has to be someone who's willing to study and take the direction from the teacher and go and do their homework. And people, like I said, some people are shocked to see that singing, performing, entertaining is work, but the reward doesn't feel like work. Let me just say that when you take that stage and you're ready and you start sailing and you start flying, taking off, when you come down from that stage, it is such a feeling that is hard to describe. Some people can get on a high with it. It does something for them. It strokes their ego, whatever. For me, it's a pat on the back to say, well done. Especially when someone comes to me and says, well done. That's the feeling I want the student to have when they are performing at a level and they feel like, wow. Whether you are a youngster, when I say youngster, 6 years old, or you are somebody who's embarking, middle age, or you're just coming into your own, whatever your age is, singing better is something that everybody has the ability to do. However, not everybody can be a good singer. Now, I've heard people say, oh, I can teach this person, to sing this way and that way, and they're just, they're fabulous from their point of view. But again, I always say somebody has to hear you and accept what they're hearing to the level of expectation. So I honestly feel that everybody can sing better. How about that? I feel that everybody can learn techniques where they can do a little bit better or grow, let's put it that way. But that does not mean that that person is going to be a Patti LaBelle, an Anita Baker, a Stevie Nicks, George Benson, Brian McKnight, whoever, right? Michael Bublé, John Legend. I can throw out names all day long. You have to study. So that's why some students do better than others, because the teacher gives them the assignment and then works with them through that assignment so that they can now start to develop. If the student is not developing, they are wasting their time and they're wasting their resources. Let me say this as well. From my point of view, and notes from a songbird and what I've learned, not everything is about singing either. It's also presentation. It's also discipline. Are you willing to stay away from foods that produce phlegm, that don't give you the best sound? A lot of people don't know about that. And, I can have people drop things. Oh, don't eat this. Don't eat. Listen, sometimes it's your individual body that rejects certain foods. So some people could say, oh, I eat this. Yeah, but what does that do for somebody else? This is what I mean. You must become a student and understand what happens as a result of you eating this versus that. And we all know, milk products, phlegm, anything like that, of course, you're going to stay away from. But I hear people say all the time, oh, I stay away from the milk, but then they're eating mac and cheese. I'm not even going to go there. Mac and cheese before they're about to sing. I'm not saying milk and all stuff is a no-no. Before singing, practice, rehearsal, whatever it is, it's a no-no. But it's also knowing your body and what works and what doesn't work. Now, my beginners, because I love my beginners. And again, this is about helping individuals move from one point to another. It may not just be beginners. Maybe there's something you're doing wrong and you've been doing it wrong for years and you have to undo that. You have to learn it all over again. I know some people who have been singing bad for years and they did not realize it because they're just doing things that went against the natural order of their throat. That's the best way I can emote that. But if you want to be a serious singer, or if you want to just get better in using your vocal cords, why not learn? I know for a certainty, the other day I was speaking with an insurance agent. I was about to change my insurance over to another carrier. And the lady on the other end of the phone said to me, excuse me, may I ask you a personal question? I said, sure. She said, have you ever considered a job in broadcasting? And I paused for a second and I said, you know what? I actually did at one point, but the broadcasting world wasn't for me because there's just a lot that comes along with that, whose company you're going to be in and some of the things that, you hear that goes on in these different broadcasting, the realm. Nothing against you broadcasters. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying this is what I heard, and some of the things. And listen, I had a classmate that was a broadcaster and some of the stuff that would come out her mouth just was, okay. I'm not going to spill who it is because I love everybody and I'm just not going to do that. But I'm just saying that the world can be that of a challenge. So I didn't want to put myself in that type of arena. Remember, I said, from my point of view and how I moved and grooved. So for me, it wasn't a way for me to move and groove. However, all of that for me to explain why I didn't pursue the broadcasting route. But that's not to say that you may not want to pursue a broadcasting route. You may not want to, do those things. And certainly I would think if the years have advanced from when I was coming up, then maybe there are some platforms. Let me just tell y'all who I just loved. Angie Martinez. I love her voice, right? She has such a great speaking voice. That's what I'm saying. Singing, or what I'm talking about is maybe you want to just improve your speaking voice, your natural speaking voice. There's different things that you can do, or there's different ways you can go about doing that. And again, I always say a recorder is your best friend because you can play it back. Look, I'm on video. When I end this video, I will look at myself and say, oh, you could have said that better. Or you may not have used that in the right context. And I can critique myself. But I'm live, I'm in the moment, and I don't care to do that. I could go back and edit it out. No, that's not what I want. I want to be as raw because I want to prove to you I'm not perfect. I'm not the bill of perfection. I'm just someone just like you who just put in the work in or was willing to put in the work in. So my suggestion is first start with your vision board. Get it on paper, get it on a digital format. I would suggest doing both. Keep one open, like I keep this one open daily, and I just post check myself to see where I'm at. Now, you're probably saying, but wait, you said these were her goals. No, there's a page in here that's for students. There's a page in here for my students because I'm responsible for them, so they should be part of my vision. Then I also have my details in that book for my personal projects to make sure I'm living the truth that I want them to. A teacher should be doing that, whether that teacher is helping that student, whether they're a performer themselves and they are helping people. You've got to live it. If you don't live it, if you don't breathe it, if you don't eat it, I just don't know how you succeed. So to help someone in my position, I feel like I have to be doing it. That's where I got to this point in talking about starting the podcast and helping others. And I'm giving you baby steps on how I was able to achieve what I was able to achieve in my lifetime and why it's successful, because a lot of times I kept my goal in front of me. And I made sure if I was writing, like what my student was mentioning, some of her goals, because some of those goals that she wrote down, I remember when those were my goals. And I remember how I would say, okay, I want to work on this today. And then let's talk about that. You can have a list of goals, but how do you work on those goals? Remember, bite size. Excuse me, you can't do everything at once. So tell yourself, maybe, you know what, maybe in the month of February and March, this is what I want to work on. Then look at February and March and see, did I succeed or do I still need to work on that? And then now keep that goal for April. That does not mean you can't be working toward another goal in conjunction within those same months. All you're simply doing is moving the needle forward. You're pushing that car forward with some gas. You're putting some gas in the tank. By the time January 2027 rolls around, look back and see, did you nail your goals? And if you didn't, write down why not, because that in itself becomes a goal. What got in the way? So that in 2027, now you know what your roadblocks are. Now you know what's in the way. What's the risk and how do you mitigate it? That's how you move forward. That's how you move with intention. If you're serious, and if you're serious, you will be disciplined. And if you are not disciplined, I highly suggest that you get a book or something that talks about procrastination and being disciplined, because I'm here to tell you I was the number one procrastinator with so many things. I was just a procrastinator. I just felt like, oh, I can put that off. And I started to pay attention to my behaviors and why I wasn't succeeding. Remember in episode 1, I talked about some things that got in my way. So I'm here to tell you, you can do it. You've got to start somewhere. I would suggest that you first start writing down some goals. Then let's talk about some of those tools. The recorder, sing into a recorder, play it back, hear what you really sound like. Then you can go to your teacher and say, you know what? I need help with this, and that. That's where you're moving with intention. And now your teacher knows what your target is and they can marry toward your goal. I hope you enjoyed Notes from a Songbird podcast with yours truly. I hope this information has given you plenty of information so that you can move forward with your goals. And I'm here to celebrate you for even tuning in today to listen. And if you have been successful in doing some of the things that I've mentioned, drop a note down here. And that's okay. We don't have a lot of viewers yet. Listen, this podcast is taking off. I don't expect to have viewers anytime soon. I mean, I probably could be at this thing for a year. Listen, people can come back and play this back a year later and it's still going to give them chock full of information. Again, my passion is to teach. So I'm not about the numbers. I'm not trying to get numbers. I'm not trying to get likes. I wish you well. Have a great evening, and we'll talk soon. Bye.